The film world has been buzzing with acolytes for South Korean director Bong Joon Ho, and whatever his next film would be, since he became the first foreign film director to win Best Picture back in 2020 with his film Parasite. Shocking everyone, especially anyone who knows how out of touch the Academy voters are. However, Parasite was just that much of a force to be reckoned with, and really showed how director Bong was able to shine a spotlight on many of the issues facing the impoverished of South Korea, translating its themes into something that has international appeal, proving himself to be one of the biggest names to watch when it comes to international cinema. All eyes were on him and his next project, which finally came together in Mickey 17. The film I'm talking about today. So, after 6 long years of turmoil and COVID-related delays, now we can finally answer the question of whether this film lives up to the hype or not. My answer to that question is yes. Yes, Mickey 17 is a good movie, albeit with some flaws. It's a fun satire of working life that effectively uses its science fiction setting to elevate its theme to absurdity. It follows Mickey Barnes and his job as an expendable on a space expedition. We see him get put through the ringer endlessly and serve as a human guinea pig. The expendable title he takes on entails that Mickey must be willing to do all the dirty, risky work that is involved with such a space expedition. While it may be pretty on the nose with its themes, it never directly hits you on the head with them. Well, okay, like with Parasite, it does get obvious at certain points in the plot, but never becomes obnoxious about it. The humor lends itself well to make it less obnoxious, by not focusing on that as a source of humor, and focusing more on the follies of Mickey, while still managing to treat him with dignity. I mean, he is the butt of the joke more often than not, but he is never dehumanized. At least, not to us viewers. He is clearly dehumanized throughout the film, with countless horrible things he has to endure, but we as an audience still resonate with him and his trials. The ensemble of characters and the whole thing with him being expendable plays into how they treat him. And they treat him in various ways, from disdain to morbid curiosity to even nonchalant dismissal of any bodily harm. It really helps make you feel all of the absurdity of Mickey's entire situation and how people treat him, especially considering how much they like to just mess with him and experiment on him for no reason. Like, there's this scene really early on where they just tell him to work on the exterior of the spaceship, leading him on so that they can test the effects of cosmic radiation on him for no reason. Stuff like that borders between cruelty and absurdity, and that's where the film finds its comical footing. That its satirical take on his situation adds on to this, and although it may be overt, it doesn't beat you over the head with what it's trying to comment on. Robert Pattinson's performance of Mickey and the multiple versions of Mickey are pretty good, and also pretty distinct. Sometimes he is feeble, and sometimes he is nasty, but Mickey is never completely unlikable. I mean, even the more cruel version of Mickey is still kind of relatable, even if it is unlikable. You kind of understand why the cruel Mickey is acting that way. It's him acting cynically based on his own experience of getting fucked over by pretty much everyone in his life. That's kind of what created that cynical version of Mickey. It's just that part coming to the surface through that version. Still, you find yourself liking the more innocent version of Mickey rather than the cynical one. And going into the movie, I thought I would hate him. I would just outright hate Mickey as a character and just the way he spoke. And within the first few minutes, I was already prepared to hate him. Specifically with how Robert Pattinson speaks as Mickey and his tone of voice, which feels very nebbish. And for some reason, I just couldn't get this out of my mind. It reminded me a lot of how dubbed anime protagonists sound in a shonen anime. Maybe I'm the only one who thought this. I don't know. I don't know why my mind made that comparison. It just did. It may have something to do with this one clip of Robert Pattinson comparing his performance to anime characters, especially with the way that they can go from just 0 to 100. However, the more I got used to it, the more I grew to like it. And I think that is in large part due to the presence it has in the narration of the film, and it kind of helped me become more comfortable with it. The film does use narration as a way to set up the story and explain the backstory of how Mickey became an expendable pretty quickly, and it's really just done out of convenience, so as to focus on Mickey's place on his settlement ship and the implications of him taking such a job. Although, I will say this, I've seen this online and I kind of agree. I think it does leave some questions open about the implications of such technology, and it decides to steer away from those themes, which I feel might upset people who want to know more about the implications of human printing and the consequences of having multiple versions of yourself may have. The story deliberately sidesteps that to focus on Mickey specifically, and how people treat him instead of all of that more abstract science fiction stuff. To be honest, I'm kind of fine with that. From the director's work in science fiction is very deliberate in how he uses scale in science fiction stories. He does this to sharpen the narrative while reeling in the budget and the scale of these movies. For the narrative then becomes more personal and intense that way, limiting the locations and their visual elements to the bare necessities. In Snowpiercer, it becomes a claustrophobic train heist set in a dystopian future. In The Host, its CG monsters are horribly dated, but because of how sparingly used they are, it still adds suspense and intensity that isn't lost when you see the creature. And for Okja, it focuses on mainly one unique animal, and the delicacy and rarity of nature, specifically of animals in nature. Mickey 17 focuses on Mickey and his struggles, as well as the trials of a colony trying to establish itself on a foreign planet with unknown creatures. The planet looks pretty good, and I love how they use the climate to create a good atmosphere whenever there are exterior scenes that take place on the surface of the planet. I also like the effects on the creeper animals that actually live on the planet. They have such a fleshy look that I kind of really like, and I also quite like the way that Bong treats them, and it's actually quite comforting. They are kind of ugly, but he makes them adorable in the way that they act, while still having them have that fleshy, insect-like appearance. He uses them pretty well, and has them actually feel like a good part of the plot, and I really appreciated how much the additional effects added to the film, and how he tied in these animals into the plot, and made them feel like a core part of it. And while the cinematography isn't flashy, especially compared to films like Parasite, it does an adequate job of painting the life inside and outside of Mickey's ship, giving it character with its great use of lighting, visual staging, and set design. The level of detail here is quite admirable, and adds to the hyperbolic science fiction he is trying to create. Overall, I quite like Mickey 17, and I think if you are a fan of eccentric science fiction, then this film is for you. While it doesn't dive deep into some of the themes it touches on, it more than makes up for it by being a funny movie with plenty of character and charm. I could see some people being off-put by the dark humor or the cartoonish performances in the film, or even finding some of the satire a bit overbearing, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would recommend this movie wholeheartedly. It's got bits of action, comedy, and satire to keep you engaged throughout its entire 2-hour runtime. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in my next video.